Thank you, everybody. Welcome back. And thank you for joining us this afternoon for our final panel, Explore and Inspire. My name is Dr. Sharon Rivera. You can call me Sharon. I'm excited to be with you this afternoon. And I'll share a short highlight of all of our panelists today, and then they will each have an opportunity to introduce themselves and we can get started. Today, our panelists are Dr. Myra Amezcua, a postdoctoral fellow at Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. Myra wants to share about their experience as a physicist in quantum information science and let students know about opportunities in this blooming field. We also have Dr. Ashley Javanette. She's an assistant teaching professor at the University of California, San Diego, and just published a book called So You Want to Be a Neuroscientist. They're here to share about neuroscience and how to get involved in possible career paths. We also have Judy Galindo, the Director of Research and Clinical Research, site co-owner and co-founder of Latinos in Clinical Research. Judy's here to share about careers in clinical research and different ways to get started in the field. You might hear my neighbor's dogs, work from home life. So thank you all for being patient. And thank you all for joining us today. Let's begin with the opportunity for each of you to share a little bit more from your personal introductions. Myra, would you like to share first? And then the panel can follow as they like.
Yes, sounds good. Thank you so much. All right, hello everyone. My name is Myra Amezcua, and I'm currently a postdoctoral fellow at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, as Sharon just said. And actually, this is my 4th month as a postdoc, so I'm pretty new. Just some things about me. I'm a Southern California native. Both my parents are immigrants. And my mother actually attended community college, but I'm the first person to attend a 4-year college and then even continue my studies. And as a kid, I wanted to be the president of the United States. There's still time, but I always thought, okay, I'm gonna, graduate from high school, go to college, and study law and go to law school. And I thought that was my path. I was so wrong. And so in high school, I was inspired by my physics teacher to actually pursue physics. And it was definitely something that, I was more enamored with. I loved mathematics, I loved physics, I loved chemistry. There was just something that really called my name. And so when I started Pomona College in 2008, I was like, you know what, I'm sticking to it. First term there, I was like, I'm declaring physics major, boom, just right off the bat. And so, to really understand, okay, what's going on, I started doing research over the summer to really see like what were my opportunities. So I did 2 summers of astronomy research with one of the professors there. But after that, I decided, you know what, astronomy is great, but it's definitely not for me. And so in my junior year, I decided, okay, I'm going to apply for one of these REUs, these research experience for undergraduates. And I thought, there's no way they're going to pick me, I don't know. I applied, and then the next day I got the acceptance. I was like, great, sounds good. So I spent my summer at the University of Oregon. And that, I think, was the first really introduction to what research is, because a lot of my summer was like spent, not really doing science, but just like, building a lot of the things that we would need to use for science. But I was still super interested. So I came back and did a small senior project in quantum optics. And so I got to use lasers and all these like different fun optics. And I'm like, you know what, this is what I really want to do. And so I decided, you know what, my summer at the University of Oregon was amazing. I have to go there. And so I applied, got in, but it was tough. Graduate school is very hard. And so the first 2 years there, I was really scared. I had failed this qualifying exam that, you need to continue. And I failed it twice. And I was just like, no, maybe I should leave. I shouldn't be a scientist. And one of the professors talked to me and she's like, don't run away from anything. If this really isn't for you, work towards something else, but don't just run away. And so I was like, fine, I'll do it. And I finally passed, and I got the high score. And I think because of that, they gave me like $100 or something. So I was like, I can do this. Okay, I just need to sit down and, grind through it, but I can definitely do this. And so My graduate work was in these defect centers in Diamond. And, you know, part of being in graduate school, it's not just only focusing on the work, but doing other things as well. And so my advisor's like, hey, there's this opportunity to do research in China if you'd like. And so I applied and, you know, spent 8 weeks doing some research in China. And that was fantastic. And so, you know, in 2018, I defended and became a doctor of Musqua. And then after that, my path diverged a little bit. So I didn't go directly, you know, to academia or anything else. I decided to, I was hired by the small R&D company, and they worked on a lot of different projects. So a lot of the projects weren't actually related to what I did, but, you know, because I had a background in physics, a lot of my work was on modeling and just kind of learning new things. And so one of the coolest projects we did worked on these like gecko-inspired adhesives. You know, I had worked in the lab in the dark with all these optical equipments, and now it's like, okay, now we're building up these like nanoscale arrays that, you know, mimicked adhesives. And then after that, I loved it. It was great, but I was like, you know what? I still want to do quantum computing. And so I got a call out of nowhere from one of the people at JHU APL, and they're like, hey, do you want to come work on quantum computing? And they said yes. And so here I am, you know, literally in January, I packed all my stuff, flew across the country from Maryland, which is completely crazy for me because, you know, I've been a West Coast girl for all of my life, basically. And so here I am on the East Coast, and now I'm working with superconducting qubits and doing quantum computing work. And so yeah, that's kind of my background. And sorry, just a quick thing for everyone there. There are a lot of opportunities and internships at APL. And so currently the window is closed, but if you are interested, our applications open up September 1st through March 31st, if you're interested in coming to work at APL. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Myra. That's super inspiring. We're really excited to hear more about your story and your journey as we go through this panel. Ashley, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for having me. That was super cool. I'm really excited to learn more about APL, so I hope you'll talk about it more later. Yeah, so I'm Ashley Javanet. I'm currently an assistant teaching professor at UC San Diego. And I started off as a quote unquote scientist, mostly just someone who was curious about the world. My parents are not scientists. They're working class family. My dad worked at the library for many years, and my mom actually still works at a daycare. So I was definitely the first scientist in my family, and they certainly didn't know anything about what that looked like at all. And so there were a few different reasons why I pursued neuroscience specifically. I always kind of knew I was interested in STEM or engineering or science. And so this is my grandmother, actually. She struggled her whole life with really crippling depression and anxiety, but was also extremely creative, as you can see here. And for me, I just loved this sort of question of like, how does the brain do this, right? How can the brain be both? The brain can struggle so much for so many different people, but also do beautiful things and be creative and intelligent, all of these other things. And so when I was in high school, actually, I took one of those quizzes that was something like, you know, what are you going to do with your life? And one of the things it recommended to me was this book called Mind Wide Open, because it was like, oh, it seems like you like psychology or neuroscience. And I read this book and I thought it was super rad. And so I went to college and decided, yeah, neuroscience is kind of it. I think that this is really cool. And really similar to sort of Dr. Amezcua, like what you described, that first research experience was really eye-opening. And it was, you know, it was kind of doing some boring things like moving brain slices around or pipetting different things. But I learned a lot about the research lifestyle. I learned that you could travel as a researcher, that you had all this freedom as a researcher. And I just thought that that was super cool. Like you could just decide kind of what you were doing and meet other people and talk about science. And so this similarly, I think to what you described, Dr. Amezcua, this was a like summer research program and just kind of got my feet wet, sort of, you know, trying to see what was out there. And so I did a few different research experiences in college, and then decided that I liked it enough to go after a PhD. And so then as a PhD and a postdoctoral fellow, so that sort of extra training after my PhD, I was really focused on trying to understand the different cell types and the circuits in the brain that underline visual perception, so make sense of it. And so I did that for several years, got my PhD, and then what I'm doing now is slightly different, actually. So I'm away from the bench. So now I'm a teaching professor. So I'm really invested in thinking about neuroscience career paths and training the next generation of neuroscientists, including maybe yourself, if you're in this room. And so I wanted to also just comment on kind of what neuroscience is, because neuroscience is this crazy field right now, and there's a lot going on. And this is one of my favorite sort of maps. It's a little wild, but you'll notice that this is just all of the different topics in neuroscience. So there's people in neuroscience who are trying to understand things like Parkinson's disease, or how the brain evolved, or metabolism, like how our brain, our brain takes 25% of our energy. How does all of that work? So neuroscience is a really interdisciplinary field. So I think that you can find a home in any of these different topics. And it spans many different levels of investigation. So some neuroscientists are looking at genes and molecules. Other people are looking at cognition, like why do we make the sort of decisions that we do? And for me, my home was kind of here in the middle. So around systems and circuits. So trying to think about different neurons in the brain and how do they talk to other neurons, and how does that enable us to do all the cool things that we do as humans. So I thought I would just comment, since I think about this a lot, on a few things to think about if you're thinking about a career in STEM. And the very first thing that I think you'll see in probably all of our stories is to get research experience in any way that you can. So that could be at your local university or company. It could be through a program specifically for transfer students. So if you're thinking about going to a four-year university, this is a really, there are many different programs for transfer students. And one thing I want to say is that keep in mind that sort of the entry-level positions, that you might get are really different from research careers. So when you first enter a lab, you might be like washing dishes or things like that. And I definitely did that when I first entered the lab. But ultimately, research careers give you the ability to ask really cool questions about, brains or physics or whatever it may be. So just keep that in mind. And I'll make a plug too for the set of programs that's called Endure programs. And there's a few of these. So I'm running one of these now at UC San Diego. University of Washington has one too, and Nevada also has one. These are programs specifically for students who are applying to four-year colleges, trying to get their sort of foot in the door with research. And so if you're in the San Diego area or thinking about going to UC San Diego, we can definitely talk more about this program. The other thing I would just say is give coding a chance. So neuroscience and a lot of other fields rely on coding and quantitative skills. And the really good news is that you can do this for free. So there's a lot of online resources to help you learn how to code. There's a lot of online data sets too that are just free. So you could start wrangling, playing with some data. So there's a lot of good opportunities for that. And then finally, there's a lot of different paths forward. So I think hopefully you'll see in this whole conference and today, there's many different career paths. In neuroscience, people come in with a variety of different backgrounds. So they come in with neuroscience backgrounds, but also psychology, biology, even things like physics and computer science. So there's kind of a lot of different ways into the field. And if you are thinking about maybe a PhD, I would say keep an open mind, because that's definitely a possibility. I didn't know this when I was an undergrad, but PhDs pay money. They will pay you to do research. It's a really great chance to get more research experience. You might say a PhD is really hard and you have that sort of idea, but what you're doing now is really hard. I think, like learning during a pandemic, everything you've been through in the last year in your life, it's hard. And PhD is hard, but it's hard for different reasons. You're independent, you have to guide your own research. And so definitely be open-minded and think about possibly getting a PhD someday. I firmly believe anybody can get a PhD. And just keep in mind that there's a lot of endless possibilities, different combinations. There's jobs that will exist in 5 years that do not exist today. So always keep an open mind for all those sort of things. So yeah, so I'll end there. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. So much amazing information that we get to kind of expand upon during this panel. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Judy, would you like to go?
Yes, okay, let me see, let me share. Okay. Let's see, oops, I don't know if I did that right. No, I don't think I did. Hold on, sorry. Let me fix this. Check something, hold on. Can you see my presentation now? Hello? Hello.
Yes, yes,
Okay, you can. Okay, sorry, I was having some technical issues right now.
No worries.
Hold on, let me change something real quick. Okay, there we go. Sorry, let me go back to, okay. Hi, everyone. So I'm Judy Galindo, Director of Research for Sun Valley Research Center. I'm also a co-owner of our research center in Imperial County. And I'm a co-founder of Latinos in Clinical Research. But I actually started, let me tell you where I started. I started working on my bachelor's degree at San Diego State in biology. I thought I was going to be pre-med, and I was pre-med, and I thought I was going to go to med school. And probably like 3 or 4 years into my education, I applied for a research assistant job at a sleep disorder center in Mira Mesa, California. I didn't know what that was. I just applied. It was very minimal hours a week. I think going in the evening and afternoons to work with the patients that spent the night for their research studies. So I would administer questionnaires, take their vital signs, and that was it. That was my intro into clinical research in working for a clinical research site. I never knew that existed. I had no idea that was a field or an industry that existed. And that was where my clinical research career started while I was in college. I ended up almost finishing my biology degree. There was a few classes I didn't get to finish. I took a break because I was working full time while going to school. So it was a little overwhelming. I ended up going back to school and finishing it in psychology instead. But at that time when I graduated, which was about 2006, I was already working for this clinical research center, and I had moved from working as a part-time research assistant to working in the call center, and established a call center where we would pre-screen all the potential referrals we would receive to see if they qualified for the sleep studies that we had at that time. And then eventually I moved into a research assistant assisting the study coordinators, and then into a study coordinator position, and eventually a manager in training. And then I ended up leaving that company 13 years ago and had an opportunity to start Sun Valley Research Center with 2 psychiatrists in Imperial County, and pretty much become a co-owner of the research center. And that's where I'm at 13 years later. Imperial County is located in a large Hispanic community. We work with a lot of English and Spanish speakers. There's limited resources for a lot of conditions out there, especially psychiatry. There's only 1 county mental health office, and my doctor, Dr. Bernardo Ng, is the only doctor in private practice as a psychiatrist. And so we do, there's a lot of services we lack, and clinical research and having the option to have patients participate in this field, into these trials where they get free medications, they get free medical care. We monitor them to see how they're doing every day, is an alternative option, and an option for many in Imperial County. Sorry, I didn't go to this next slide. So currently I'm actually working on my master's in advanced studies in clinical research at UCSD. I just started that July of last year. I'm also a certified clinical research coordinator through the Association of Clinical Research Professionals. And let's see, and pretty much, aside from running the research center, the purpose of Latinos in clinical research is to get others into clinical research. We want to educate the communities that we work in to participate in clinical research, but we also want to educate the younger generation to get into clinical research, that there's so many career opportunities and different areas they can go to in clinical research. And so pretty much clinical research is growing. You can work for a clinical research site like I do. You can work in an academic setting. You can work in just different areas of any therapeutic area that you want to work in. Clinical research, pretty much we work with investigational medications before they're FDA approved. So patients participate in the studies, we see how they do, we monitor them, whether it's weekly, every 2 weeks, depending what the protocol is. All that information we collect, we give it back to the pharmaceutical company, who in turn reviews all the data on this medication over different research studies that they do over a certain amount of time, and they determine if the medication, based on the data that they have, if it works, it's effective, there's low side effects to it, then most likely that's something they would submit to FDA to get approval on. We work with a lot of children, adolescents, adults, elderly patients, mostly psychiatry, CNS, and we're actually expanding into other therapeutic areas in the next year. It's a lot of information on the slide, but just to kind of give you an idea, on the left side is all the careers you can have if you work for a clinical research site, different areas you can go to, because you can work in the patient setting where you work with patients. You go work behind the scenes where you're just pre-screening patients over the phone. You could work as a recruiter where you're finding potential participants for a study. You can work in the administrative part of clinical research, in the budgets and contract in clinical research, and all these areas in clinical research that you don't even work with patients if that's not something you want to do. And then on the other right side is the careers within the industry or government. If you don't work for like a clinical research center, you can go work for a sponsor, which is usually a pharmaceutical company, or a CRO, which is a clinical research organization. It's kind of like the middle person that works with the clinical research sites and the pharmaceutical company to ensure that the clinical research study is going correctly, everything's being done how it's supposed to be, the data is being collected, and so forth. But within that industry, there's just so many other roles you can go into, manager, data entry, stats, just everything and anything you can think of. So I kind of went over a little bit about clinical research and what it's about. And this is just a little flyer. We actually established Latinos in clinical research at the end of 2020 with a bunch of colleagues that I have in clinical research, because there's a lot of barriers we face with recruiting potential participants for our studies in Hispanic communities like the one I work in. I have a lot, there's a lot of things we run into. Trying to work with other providers in the community has been a little bit of a barrier because a lot of times they're not educated on clinical research. So they don't really want nothing to do with it. And then the other side of it is when I try to hire people at my office, it's really hard to get someone with any research experience because nobody really knows about the industry. So I want to change that. I want to I want to have these conversations in my community to the schools around us and let them know these are possibilities that are out there, and help people get into the industry at a younger age and not fall into it like I did when I was my third or fourth year of college. And this is a little bit about us and information about my office, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Judy. I learn so much when I'm able to interact in these kind of formats. Thank you all for sharing. And thank you all for letting us in your homes and sharing with us in this way. So we really appreciate that. I'd like to also open it up to the students and the participants. If you've got a question, go ahead and pop it in the Q&A or the chat. We'll be monitoring that, but I'm going to jump off the first question here with something that kind of resonates back to our keynote speech this morning from Mr. Robin Lopez. And it's, how do you navigate academia or industry while remaining true to your own identity and culture? And whoever would like to go first, jump in.
I can say a little bit something about that. I mean, I guess it is a little bit of a challenge, but when you're going into a certain field or you're going to study something, I guess you have to kind of see, what do you want to do with it? So not just a career, what you're going to make of it, but like, is there something more you can do? Can you make a difference? Can you share that with others and take that background that you have and even share, like, for example, myself with my family. I think now they understand a little bit more about what I do, but if you actually ask them, they're still, it's not just a very simple description of what you can say what I do, but I try to like share that with my family, and I try to like, it's okay if you want. Oh, sorry. They're difficult, they're hard science, but you can do it, and you can still, focus on other things that are going on in your life if you want to have family, and stay true to who you are, but take that with you into the field that you're going in or into what you're trying to study. And do something more with it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, like I seek out workplaces that I can really be my whole self and feel comfortable being my whole self. And so I feel fortunate that I haven't needed to compromise that, and have been able to find colleagues and my like PhD program and things like that were very supportive for like whoever you are, whatever you bring to the table. And so I don't know. I think, yeah, if you're not willing to compromise, right? Don't compromise who you are for your career. I don't think that's worth it. I think you want to find the places that will accept you as your whole self.
Sorry, did you want more answers or did you want to jump to the next question? Okay. Yeah, I think that's something that I've definitely been struggling with a lot. And so at my the previous place that I was at, it was a company where I was the only female scientist, and I guess one of the only people of color. And so I knew that for me, long term, like that wasn't going to work out. But I knew, okay, I'm coming in. My purpose here is to get the experience and move on to someplace else where I can be supported for the person I am, and where people are interested in diversity. And so, yeah, just, knowing that, wherever you're at, you don't have to, put in all this work. It's like, okay, if people are not going to cooperate, then, this is not going to be for me long term. Then I need to move on to a place that is healthy.
Thank you all very much. We do want to hear from each and every one of you for each question. All of the chats are coming in and they're just celebrating all of you and what you're saying. So it's also really resonating with students to in order to bring your full self to work, you want to find some place that's going to support you. So going against the rift can be eroding, right, to your personal well-being. And especially right now, we want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and each other. Thank you very much. We've got a question from the sign up. As a current community college student, what skills should I concentrate on now so it can benefit me later? Whoever would like to go first.
I think I just want to doubly, triply support what Ashley had said previously and learn how to code. If I could go back again and do my undergrad, I would definitely take more coding classes, because wherever you go, you need to code something. I use coding to analyze my data, or I have to, interface with all the instruments. So I need to learn how to code so they all are talking to each other at the right time. So that's the biggest thing you could do, just learning how to code.
I guess I would just add, I don't know if specific skills other than what was mentioned, definitely, maybe also getting the experience. So if there's something you want to go into a specific field, industry, if you can volunteer somewhere, whether it's at the college level or outside of the college level, that way you can kind of learn a little bit more about what you want to go into and see what skills you might need to learn ahead of time, so you can kind of be prepared going into, or be ahead of the game, I guess.
Yeah, I'll add more emphasis on the coding. I dropped a website in the chat that is a free place that you can go. Certainly sort of all the entry level things are free, even just to dip your toe in and see how it feels. Everybody can learn how to code. It's like learning a language. If you speak 2 languages, you're gonna be great. And yeah, so absolutely, yeah, Python is a good place to start. Definitely. And then the other thing I'll say too, yeah, I think talking to people, figuring out what kind of jobs are out there, what sounds interesting. And what was I gonna say? I totally blanked. I was gonna say something else, but never mind.
When it comes back to you, feel free to just jump right in and share
I just
with us.
remembered.
Yes.
So I was gonna say, if there's any I think the opportunities to lead and organize and collaborate with other people, that kind of skill set will go a really long way regardless of what career you go into. So if you're involved in an organization, and there's some sort of leadership you can take on, or something you can organize, or any sort of chances like that to kind of stretch your legs in those areas will always serve you regardless of where you're headed.
To follow up from that, do you have any recommendations on how how we might be able to take the transferable skills that we have and showcase them in a way that seems science relevant or STEM relevant or discipline relevant, maybe on a resume or in conversation?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I mean, there's a couple things like in a lot of STEM fields, like things like project management, right, is kind of like a term people will use. So if you ever were the lead on like organizing an event or organizing a project in some way, I would say, take ownership of that, and on your resume, be really specific, and in your cover letter, be really specific about what you did. Like, I planned this event, I organized this group together. If it's something like a research project, like I did this analysis, I was involved in these steps. So like taking ownership and over the things that you did and being really specific about what you did, I think can really help a lot.
Yeah, I think to add to that, as it also including on your resume or CV, any programs you've worked with, any type of like, if you've worked where you administered assessments or cognitive, anything like that, just include all that in your CV, because that's going to benefit you depending where you go into, that you have that knowledge, that background, that training of already doing some of that. And maybe, some things you wouldn't have to do or trainings in the future. Yeah, definitely list that and don't exclude that information off your resume.
I think something that's really important too is like communication. And, as scientists, like the biggest thing we need to do is communicate our science. And so, if you've presented at different conferences or given talks or, really showcase that too. Because, if you're doing science, but no one really knows about it, or, then you're kind of stuck in your own little bubble. So that's definitely something that is very helpful, like learning how to communicate and presenting.
I'll add to that. That's, like starting your own blog. Like if you're involved in any sort of projects or organizations, like you can blog about your experience. You can start sort of putting those things out into the world. And then you can list those writings or whatever communication you've done. Like if you're writing about your research experience or whatever job you're doing, you can put that in the world and put it on your resume. And that's like a way that you've communicated. It's really good practice. And it shows that you care and that you're willing to like write about your research and, or whatever you're doing.
Thank you very much. Those are absolutely fantastic, fantastic pointers. I just want to put another shout out to the participants. If you've got any questions, go ahead and pop them in the Q&A or in the chat box. We will follow up with them, and we'll make sure that we incorporate those into our conversation here. Another question from the sign-up sheet is learning more about the career options in your specific fields, and the types of the degrees that might be required for those, and how to decide if that's the right path or the right degree for that student.
I think the thing that's becoming huge these days are these informational interviews. So, either talking to a professor or, asking them to suggest someone who's in the field, and then going ahead and, kind of setting up an informal interview where you just want to find out, like, what is it that they do? Like, what is their background? And that will give you like a better, understanding of what is it really that they do and how they got there. I remember I did this in grad school. Like someone is like, oh, I'm a medical physicist. I'm like, what is that? And, I spent the whole day kind of shadowing them, and I'm like, this is great, but I don't think it's for me. Right. So yeah, and a lot of people, I'm sure you'll get rejected a lot, but then there are a lot of people who are excited to share and, want people to like go into the field and are very supportive. So yeah, trying to set up those informational interviews just to find out what are people up to.
Yeah, I think in neuroscience, there's a lot going on. And so I show that picture of like all those different people. Those are different people that I interviewed for the book about neuroscience and neuroscience career paths. And so just to give you kind of a flavor of what those people are doing, some of them are science writers or science editors. So they're writing about science for the public, or they're taking submissions from scientists about their science and saying like, oh, this is really interesting, or, you know, maybe maybe you need to work on something. There's people who are in policy, so they're making decisions about what kind of funding or what gets funding from the government, or they're actually helping design policy that's informed by science, which in neuroscience is things like, you know, should we be using neuroscience in the courtroom? Is that a, you know, okay thing? You know, what if Elon Musk's Neuralink like becomes a real thing? Like, is it okay to modify our brains, right? All these big questions. So there's people with backgrounds in STEM that are in those careers. And then the other thing that I'll say is things like data science and, you know, companies that now just have a lot of data and they're not really sure what to do with it. So again, coding, but those are really growing industry right now. So there's more and more jobs that are sort of data centric, and those jobs also pay more too. So that's another consideration. So that's just a jobs that are available in neuroscience.
Yeah, in clinical research, there are a lot of people that go into it who have some kind of science degree background, but there's also a lot of people who go into it who have nothing related to science, because a lot of it has to do with like training that you receive depending on what position you go into. So you can go into it, and usually depending where you go, a lot of times you'll get trained there, like at a clinical research center and so forth. And then you take that on and you advance from there. But definitely the first place would be to start at the community college and see your professors, if there's any research studies going on campus that you can, you know, volunteer, see if you can help out with and see if that's something you want to do. Check with your professors, or if there's anything in your community research centers that maybe you can just go and see if you can volunteer and shadow them around. Is that something maybe you're interested that you didn't think you were going to be interested in? There's a lot of research centers right now that are looking for volunteers, interns, and they'll train you for free as long as you help them do something, because a lot of people are short-staffed right now, a lot of clinical research centers. And it's just you going and reaching out to them either in person or sending your resume to like a manager, director. But if that's something you're interested in, definitely that's where I would say to start.
Thank you very much. All awesome advice. A question from our sign up. Somebody asked, in hindsight, knowing what you know now, would you have done anything differently?
It's a tough question. I think for me as an individual, I'm very much like a planner. Like I'm like constantly thinking like, what is the next step? And so I think I moved through several career stages. Like I got my PhD and then I went to a postdoc and then went, and I think I could have like stretched those things out more and been like more willing to sit with the uncertainty of like what's coming next. So I would say, you know, if you're feeling uncertain, that's okay. It's an okay place to be. And like, yeah, sort of reaching out for information and sort of being in an information gathering stage before deciding exactly what you're gonna do. That's okay, and that's like a normal thing. So sitting with that sort of uncertainty is okay. And I think I don't do that very well. I think it worked out in the end, but I think I could have like relaxed a little bit more maybe.
Thank you for sharing that.
I can
go for
share
it, Judy.
something. I
Thank
think
you.
what I mean, I don't know if I regret, but I wish I would have done it maybe a lot sooner. Is go back to school sooner. So I graduated my bachelor's in 2006. I took a long break because I was kind of tired of school for a while. And then I went back and finished the rest for my psychology degree. But then, you know, I started this business. I actually have 2 kids now. You know, we bought a home. So finally, it took me years to go back to my master's, but I think about it now and it's a lot of work trying to run an office, have 2 kids, and then try to go back to school. I wish maybe I would have done it before I kind of had the kids, because I would have had maybe a lot more time to focus on it. I think that's the only thing maybe I should have finished all my schoolings a lot sooner, but it is what it is. The other thing I've always wanted to do is go back and maybe be a physician physician assistant or family nurse practitioner, but take that back to my clinical research office and use that in my community. Once again, that's a lot of schooling. I'm still looking into it. It's never late to go back to school for that. But I think that's, if you have the opportunity to go to school and keep going for your degrees, and that's something you want to do, I would say continue that path before you decide in the future to start a family or whatever you want to do, because it's a lot harder. You can do it still, it's just a lot harder.
I would say that I would not have limited myself so much when I was looking into going to grad school, because at the time I was like, I love Southern California. It's amazing. And so really when I was applying to grad schools, it's like I was trying to stay on the West Coast or as close to the West Coast as possible. And so, that definitely limited like what sort of research I could be doing, what schools I was applying to. And, after all those years, I ended up on the East Coast. So I think if I could go back, I would explore a few more options.
Thank you very much. All very powerful and heartfelt responses. So we really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that with us. I have one question left on the submitted questions from students. So I'm going to ask, what is your advice to a current community college student who wants to be a scientist?
I would say take every opportunity to learn. Like, if there's a class or free this, free that, just show up, just go for it. Being a scientist is just, you're always learning, you're always growing. So, if there's an opportunity, just go for it.
Yeah, I'll second that. And I think like things like in San Diego, we have this like big science festival usually every year, non-pandemic times. And like, if there's events like that in your community and you can go and talk to researchers who are there presenting and ask them like what they're doing and ask them how you can get involved, and like taking advantage of like any avenues you have into those spheres, take advantage of them for sure. And if you can get research experience in one way or another, get your foot in the door, be a volunteer if you need to, figure out how to sort of get your foot in the door. And yeah, that will just keep opening doors.
Yeah, definitely. Like what Ashley just mentioned, volunteer, anything you can get into, whether it's at your community college, your professors. A lot of times your professors are actually doing projects on the side that you can volunteer for. There's some kind of mentorships, any of that you can apply to, or you can try to get, but keep learning everything that you can and get exposed to any of the areas you want to go into. That's how you're going to know if you like it or you don't, or, you have different options you can go into.
Thank you so very much. This conversation, this panel, y'all are amazing. We've got some folks in. Does anybody have any questions or want to share a question in the Q&A or the chat? We do have a few more minutes. And I want to make sure that we've got the opportunity to continue sharing. Panelists, is there anything you wish you had an opportunity to share that you didn't get to talk about, that we didn't ask you about?
I think I'll add to just the point that Myra made about learning. And I think it's like an amazing time right now because you can like watch world-class scientists on YouTube, and their talks are on YouTube. You can read about their work. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunities that are free online to learn and keep learning and see what people are doing. And so I would just say like, take advantage of those things that are now. Like, I certainly didn't have that when I was growing up, and you can get actually a lot of insight, I think, into these different fields and different kinds of work. And yeah, take advantage of all of it.
We also have a question in the chat. Oh, Myra, did you want to share?
Sure, why not?
I see you unmuted. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think the thing is like, well, first of all, you know, talking to your family about your, you know, your work is kind of like a good chance and a good opportunity to really like explain your research, especially, you know, to anybody. Because, you know, I struggle with that a lot. You know, the stuff I'm in, you know, there's also like a language barrier. You know, I don't really know, like, you know, if I start talking to my parents about, you know, quantum and this and that, like, do they even like understand that language? So I think it's just trying to, you know, reach out to other people and, you know, seeing what they did, you know, maybe even coming up with a PowerPoint presentation to, you know, to kind of outline, like, you know, how does the work that you do also fit into a larger picture? And then, you know, if they don't support your journey, I think one of the biggest things too is like, you also need to have like a good support network that's outside of your family that really understands you. Because, you know, my parents are very supportive, but sometimes it's like the things that my mother says, it's like it doesn't fit because she doesn't understand the life of a scientist. You know, she's always trying to guilt me like, oh, you know, all those people who studied so hard and, you know, are no longer in their field. And I'm like, Mom, a lot of people do that. Like, scientists don't, you know, only focus and then continue focusing. So, you know, if they don't support your journey, like, you know, it's always great to have just other people that are supportive. And, you know, at the end of the day, you need to do what makes you happy. So if you love your work, yeah, continue doing it.
Yeah, found family for sure. Like I have my like found family who kind of understand my path more and like my identity more, and that's incredibly, incredibly important. I had this moment with my family where I got my current job actually, and I was very, very excited. My family's on the East Coast. My job is in San Diego, so it's kind of far, and my family was not excited about that at all. And you know, it's been a journey of sort of being like, this is really what I want. This is like my dream job, and trying to convey that enthusiasm to them, I think helps too. Like if they see how much I love it and how much I care about it, it's not really about them understanding the nitty gritty of my research. It's about them understanding that I'm passionate about it and that it's worth it to me. You know, it's been really hard, but it's worth it to me to be across the country because I love my job so much.
Yeah, I don't know if yeah, it's going to be hard for the families to fully understand what you're trying to do until maybe you get there and you can actually show something that you've worked on or presented or something for them to kind of understand. But if you're passionate about something and you know this is a field you want to go into, wherever it is you want to go into, then keep doing it. It's for you. This is where you're going to end up. This is where you're going to work. This is what, you know, keep doing it. And I think outside of the home, you do need that support network, whether it's at, you know, the college level, and your professional level, and connect yourself to those people, because those are the ones you're going to have those relationships long term with, who you can bounce each other ideas off each other and support each other in the good times and the bad times when it's difficult. But yeah, and then I think, yeah, so I mean, keep doing what you want to do and don't give up, because it is going to be hard. It's not easy, but you know, you just keep going.
Thank you very much. And you were addressing the question in the chat about engaging family. So I appreciate that. We have a question in the Q&A. It says, I will be participating in a research program over the summer. How do you choose what topic to do a project on?
Yeah, I think it can be really hard, especially if you're like, you're probably like picking from a bunch of labs or something, or maybe you need to like say, you know, which ones you want to do. And there's a couple of things. I mean, I think you can listen to what you think is just innately interesting, or like think about the classes that you've taken. And like maybe at some point when you went over, you know, genetics, you were like, wow, that's super cool that everything in our bodies comes down to 4 different nucleotides. And like listen to those moments where you got excited and sort of maybe find the research that maps that too. The other thing I want to say is that, you know, it's not as if one person was like born to do a specific kind of research or research a certain type of thing, right? And so a lot of times what ends up happening is like you get into a field and you'll start learning more, and then you get more interested and you're like, well, why is this thing? And then you get a little bit more interested. And so I think, you know, even things that may at first be like not super interesting or maybe minimally interesting, the more you learn, if you're sort of a curious person and if you're doing research, then you probably are, right? Then then it'll get more interesting and you'll get more invested the further and further you get into it. So just
Thank you very much. No pressure for everyone to answer. That's not what we're about. If you want to, you get to. We also have another question in the chat. I've heard about the importance and benefits of being able to code multiple times during Sacnas. Is there any other skills to learn that may be applicable in a wide range of settings?
So I'll say it again, that communicating and presenting your work is really important as well. Actually, I remember this from the Sacnas conference in 2015. I was a graduate student, and I was presenting my work, and the session only had 3 speakers. And other than presenting your work, you're also kind of competing for the best speaker of the session. And I remember sitting there, listening to the other 2 people and going like, oh man, like their work is amazing. This is awesome. And at the end of the day, I ended up getting the award because, the judges thought, oh, like your work really, the like target and the bottom line was accessible to everyone, right? You didn't use a bunch of jargon. You didn't use all these equations, you kept it nice and simple. And so, wherever you go, people are going to ask you what you do. And really, you need to prepare kind of a 30-second elevator pitch of like, here's the important thing of my work, here's what I do, plan, right? And without making it too fancy or using all the scientific terms. So I think that's one of the hugest things that you could also learn, is learning how to communicate what you do.
Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add a little bit. I think public speaking is also kind of like the communication, one of those skills that a lot of us do not have. I'm not a great public speaker. And so that's something I've worked on over the past several years. I don't do a lot of presentations. So maybe, for others like Ashley and Myra, I think they're more used to presenting a lot more than I do. But definitely, if I would recommend something, is if you're a little shy, you're quiet, you're not sure, how comfortable you would be in front of people, take some public speaking classes in college, or listen to some videos online or courses online that can help you improve the confidence that maybe you don't have yet. Because depending on what area you're going to go into, there might be you might have to present. You might have to speak to a large group of people. And so you kind of want to be prepared when you get there. And I definitely would say that definitely look into those type of skills.
Thank you. Awesome. We have a few minutes left, and we have 2 questions in the Q&A. One question is, any tips about finding a lab opportunity? And then the other question is, how do you explain on paper an experience that doesn't align with the job you're applying for?
So finding a lab opportunity, one thing you can do is look at the websites of people. Like if you're looking at a university, like look at the faculty websites. Many people will post on the website like, oh, we're looking for a tech, or we're hiring, things like that. Following them on social media too is another way. A lot of people on social media, different scientists will say, oh, we're like we have these positions. If there's any sort of like job portal at your community college or neighbor university that you can look at, those are really good places too. And other than that, I mean, you'd be surprised actually what a cold email will do. You might have to cold email a lot of different faculty that you're interested in working with, but you only need one, right? You only need one to land. You need one person to look at it and say, oh, okay, yeah, we're actually hiring. So yeah, come on in, like we'll interview you. So yeah, and when you do that cold email, be sure to say, here's who I am, here's any experience that I'm bringing to the table or any coursework that I'm bringing to the table. And also demonstrate that you have thought about what they do, that you're interested in what they do. Don't just send like a, hi, I want research experience, bye, please hire me. Send something that's a little bit more thoughtful, and that'll get the attention of people who are who have opportunities in their labs.
Yeah, I would add to that. LinkedIn is a great resource. Connect on LinkedIn. There's a lot of professionals on LinkedIn, even professors that for some reason, maybe you'll email them, they don't respond, but for some reason they do respond on LinkedIn because they're checking that more often. That's something I've been using the past couple of years, and I've been able to get connected to like physicians, psychiatrists, and stuff in the community that I wouldn't be able to find their emails any other place other than LinkedIn.
Great points. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any tips for how to explain on paper an experience that doesn't align with the job you're applying for?
Yeah, I think it's like if there's anything you can say, there's like any overlap between whatever the experience is and what the job is. So it might be something like, you know, the job requires some level of communication between people, right? So maybe the experience that you have required some sort of communication, whether you had to like write a thing or present a thing, whatever it may be. So that might help. I think, yeah, I'll let others tackle this too, I think on it.
I guess I would say, yeah, that's a little harder question, but if you've done anything in a college setting, in a group setting within one of your classes, whether online and in person, that's already some experience working in groups, working on a project. You know, you want to put something like that, even if you don't have any other experience on your resume, or, you know, anything related to what you were doing in definitely all your classes. You can start there, even if you don't have that full experience of the job you're applying for, but you have some of it, you know, some of the basic skills.
I think for research jobs too, you know, so much of research is like problem solving and troubleshooting and critical thinking. And so if you can think of like any time in your life where you've had to do that and you can illustrate that, I think that that's really important. It could have even been like, you know, our dog kept escaping the yard and we were like trying to figure out like how it was escaping. And so we did this thing, right? That's an experiment, right? Like there are probably experiments in your life that you've done to try to figure out like why something is happening. And so anytime you can describe an experience like that, I would do that. And that really illustrates like, okay, I'm the kind of person who can think about like, here's, you know, what we need to control these variables and try this thing and, you know, whatever it may be. So I think there's almost always some overlap with some jobs that you can talk about.
Thank you very much. We are at time. It is 1:32. We are over time. It is 1:32. Please join me in giving a round of applause to our incredible panelists. Thank you so much for this engaging and informative conversation. And we're so grateful for your generosity of time and expertise. And for, again, letting us in your homes today, this Saturday afternoon. Thank you. And you'd hear lots of woohoo, woohoo.
Thank
you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. So we are on to the very, very last portion of our time this afternoon. I'm fast forwarding through the day, apparently. And let's see. We've got some raffles to give out. Here, I'll do a drum roll. And we have 3 prizes for the Sacnas swag bag. I do not know what's in the swag bag, swag surprise bag. And I am going to do my very best to pronounce everybody's name properly. My apologies if I do not get it right, but I truly do care about each and every one of you. And I wish I could see your faces. Please use the raise hand function if you are here after I call your name. So, Sacnas swag bag. Sean Dudgeon from Hawaii Community College. Woohoo, woohoo, there you are, Sean, you're on camera. Number 2, Katrina Wozniak from Lake Superior College. All right, swag bag. And number 3, Yahaira Ortega from City College of San Francisco. Yay! Round of applause. Hi, Sean.
How's it going?
Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us.
Oh no, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Yay, so glad. So glad. Okay. We also have 10 prizes. Oh, I've been told that the swag bags include water bottles, notebooks, and more. So Sacnas Surprise Fun swag bags. We also have 10 prizes for the Sacnas annual student membership. Angela Beatty from Los Medanos College. Ariana Olvera from San Diego City College. Brendan Prizzuti from Clovis Community College. Chanel Farquharson from Nassau Community College. Heather Keith from Massachusetts Bay Community College. Kosivi Maglo from Borough of Manhattan Community College. Mario Soo-hyun Chu from Cypress College. Mitchell Madison from Napa Valley College. Randy Garcia from South Plains College. And Samantha Panera from Hawaii Community College. Woo! Sacnas student memberships, congratulations. Raffles are the best. We also have one prize, a registration for the Sacnas National Diversity Conference, our annual conference every year. And here's the drum roll again, one grand prize winner, Angela Noel from Nassau Community College. Hooray! Yay. That was my round of applause for all of you. Oh, I hear someone talking. Where are you?
Thank you.
Yeah, great. You're so welcome. You're so very welcome, Angela. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to turn this over back to Katerina. We're going to talk about all the amazing things, and you are so appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, the panelists, and congratulations, all the winners. You will be contacted next week regarding your prizes. So expect an email from Sacnas. Congratulations again. So now, if you had a great time today, the fun is not over. Sacnas has multiple events throughout the year, and one is coming up soon. So on the screen you see, on May 5th, just in a few days, we have our live webinar on topic, the broader impacts, the art and science of genetic reflections. You can register online for free and get together with the community once again. We also have our national conference happening in October. It will be full of sessions, keynote speakers, as well as an expo hall. Also known as a resource fair, where a lot of institutions, private companies, federal agencies, nonprofit organizations, societies come to Sacnas to exhibit and to meet people like you, one-on-one mentoring, culture celebrations, and so much more. I hope you will register and we can reunite in community in October. Angela, you don't need to register. You will be getting a free registration for that conference. Finally, Sacnas is a data-driven organization and your feedback is essential for us. We continue to improve our programs to better serve you. You will be receiving an email with a short evaluation survey in a few days. Please take the time to fill it out for a chance to be one of 5 winners of Amazon gift cards. So more prizes your way. And if you would like to connect with one another after today, you're invited to join our Sacnas online community feed. Follow the link on the screen or in the chat window and sign up or sign into your Sacnas membership to get started. So for the winners of Sacnas membership, you will be contacted next week from our membership manager, and she will let you know how to get connected with our online community. Thank you all again for attending 2021 Sacnas Community College Day event. I hope you enjoyed your time and are living equipped and energized for your next steps in your academic career. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you next time.